Larry Nassar was sentenced to more time behind bars yesterday after being confronted by more than 150 girls and women who say he abused them. They testified during a sentencing hearing for Nassar that lasted 7 days. Kyle Stevens, the first accuser to speak, says Nassar started molesting her when she was just 6 years old. The first victim to come forward, Rachael Denhollander, was a 15-year-old gymnast when Nassar first treated her. Here is some of what they said in court.
Larry sexually assaulted me repeatedly under the guise of medical treatment for nearly a year.
As the only non-medical victim to come forward, I testified to let the world know that you are a repulsive liar.
This is what it looks like when institutions create a culture where a predator can flourish unafraid and unabated.
Sexual abuse is so much more than a disturbing physical act. It changes the trajectory of a victim's life, and that is something that no one has the right to do.
Children are worth everything, worth every protection the law can offer.
Little girls don't stay little forever. They grow into strong women that return to destroy your world.
Rachael Denhollander and Kyle Stevens are with us, along with Dr. Jon LaPook, who has covered the Nassar case and joins us at the table. Welcome. We're so glad that you're joining us. This is very important and very serious. Rachael, I want to start with you because the judge said that you were the bravest person to ever enter her courtroom. She was very clear on how she felt. She said she wouldn't even allow him to treat her dogs. And I want to know what made you come forward all those years ago. What did you know was wrong, or what did you think was wrong?
Well, there were a few times that Nassar crossed a line that I was certain was sexual assault. But at that age, I was very convinced that this was not something that could ever be done quietly. An anonymous voice wouldn't be enough. Nassar was backed by two very powerful institutions. And I was aware at 15 of the dynamics of sexual assault. You know, that there's never only one victim. And it was something he had been doing regularly. That was clear. And so it was unthinkable that there were not other victims who had come forward and who had been silenced. And I was right. Women had been raising the alarm for years before I walked in Larry's door and had been silenced. It was not until we were able to put the public pressure on both of those institutions to take the allegations seriously that other victims felt safe enough to come forward, and we were able to stop him.
Kyle, you also began raising concerns about Larry Nassar. He was a family friend.
Yeah. I didn't know there were other victims. I worried that there were, but because I was perpetrated in a setting where I didn't know that there was the potential for that. When you're a patient, obviously there's tons of more female patients, but I had no clue.
Who did you report his behavior to?
I reported his behavior to my parents, and my parents reported it to a Michigan State doctor and professor.
Did your parents believe you at first?
No, they didn't. I didn't disclose all the details of my abuse. It's obviously very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so my parents just thought it was strange what I was saying, and they chose not to believe me.
Rachel, given how uncomfortable it is to go through these details, what was it like to hear so many other people testify all in that courtroom?
You know, it was empowering, and it was beautiful to see so many women reclaiming their voice, but it was also incredibly heartbreaking because the vast majority of us did not need to be there. Had those first reports to MSU head coach Kathy Klages in 1997 been taken seriously, the vast majority of victims would have not been in that courtroom.
And I think that's one of the most troubling things, is that you have been strong women and strong girls from the beginning reporting this behavior, but it has been the silence of people in power that allowed it to continue. Is USA Gymnastics, how did they allow him to prey on other gymnasts?
You know, USA Gymnastics is really an organization that's rotting from the inside out. They created a culture of physical, psychological, and mental abuse, but they also had a policy of not reporting sexual predators. At the time I was being abused, up until I came forward and some of this corruption began to be revealed, they would systematically file reports of sexual assault against member coaches in a file cabinet. So when you have a culture that is abusive, and then you have a policy of not reporting sexual abuse, you have created the perfect dynamic for a predator to be able to flourish.
Well, we should say that USA Gymnastics did release a statement. They say the highest priority is the safety, health, and well-being of its athletes.
That's unsupported.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, Director Penny testified under oath at one point and actually defended this policy of not reporting sexual abuse because he said he, quote, wanted to avoid a witch hunt.
Yeah.
When an organization characterizes people who report sexual abuse as potential witch hunters, that really tells you everything you need to know about how safe it is to come forward.
Yeah, Dr. Larry Nassar gets 175 years. Is that enough? Not just for him. Shouldn't more people pay the price for this? We have to point out Sally Jenkins' amazing article in the Washington Post. I encourage everybody to read it because you look at that and you see how this went on for so many years. So shouldn't more people pay, or do you believe more people should pay other than Larry Nassar?
There absolutely has to be accountability. If we don't institute accountability, if we don't learn from the mistakes that were made and make it clear that the price for making these mistakes is going to be very severe, we're just going to keep repeating this cycle of abuse.
John, what's most egregious to you in this case? You've been
All of
following
it.
Yeah.
This is a good time for me to be listening, but I would just say this has occurred on a cultural canvas that has a huge problem with sexual abuse of children. It's estimated that more than 60,000 children are abused every year, and a third of them are under the age of 12. So we need to do a lot of work, a lot of homework, and this needs much further investigation.
But it's astounding that it happens repeatedly. That's what I can't get over. That so many people knew about it and allowed it to continue for many years.
Yeah.
These institutions are diseased, and they need to recognize that they're diseased. That's part of the problem. Is up till this week, they've been refusing to recognize what's going on in their ranks, and they need to clean house.
And what did you think in Larry Nassar's statement when he said this is fabrication? These are women scorned.
Larry Nassar is a master manipulator. And I think you saw that very clearly in the courtroom.
I want to ask you, Rachel, I noticed you addressed the court, and then at the very last second you turned to the right to return, and you shot Nassar a look that could have melted iron. What was going through your head?
I wanted him to know that it was done. It was finished.
And that you were both still standing. We thank you very much for coming to see
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you.
Realize you have unleashed a tsunami of change.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I believe so too, Norah. Thank you all.